Okay, so today we're going to be looking at how to assemble our Boulies Master Chair. This particular one is for the blue fabric version, but it applies to all the models across the range and will probably apply to some of the other models from Boulies as well. If you're not sure, feel free to reach out to us in the comment section. And the first thing you should probably bear in mind is this is actually quite heavy and has a net weight of somewhere around 22 kilos, so it is heavy, so if possible having two people available is going to be beneficial, but you can do it on your own if you're careful. First of all, take a look at the content checklist and go through all the components and make sure that everything that should be there is actually there. It's a lot easier to do this now than when you've got it part assembled. Have a quick look through the installation guide and customize yourself to all the components and the order of fitting. You don't have to do it strictly as they say in the manual, but certainly it'll give you a good idea of how everything goes together. Now is probably a good time to take a look at the features and have a look to see how the armrests and the tilt and the multi-tilt mechanism works. Also check out the manufacturing quality, so make sure that things like any accessories are all as they should be, no nicks, tears, anything like that. Carefully inspect all of the stitching, make sure there's no loose edges, no frayed sections, all that kind of stuff. Also take a look at the caster base. Make sure there's no dents, nicks or damage to it. Obviously this is going to be taking most of the weight, so you want to make sure this is in perfect condition. Also check out the base section. You should find that that has got most of the components already attached to it, such as the lever for adjusting the back, and also there are some plastic covers. Do pay close attention to those just in case. And the armrests as well, make sure they're all okay, no damage, and make sure that all the adjustments work. Also accustom yourself so you know which side is which, so as you can see this is the left hand side, they will be labelled up appropriately, and this is left as in when you're actually physically sat in the chair. Also it's a good idea to lay out all the components on the table so you can see exactly what you've got, and again go through that checklist before you start assembling. This is your accessories package and also has an assembly tool. You may find that you do have some additional bits in there which you don't necessarily need, but there are spares. So first of all we're going to remove pretty much all of the bolts which are on the bottom, especially the first 8 which are going to be for the armrests. You may want to use a power tool to do this. Depending on how they've done it at the factory, they may be really tight, they may be quite loose, but go ahead and remove all 8 bolts. Next you can line up the arms, start with left or right, whichever is best for you, and then by hand start the bolts back in and do a few turns just to make sure they're threaded correctly. This will help, so if you are planning to use a power tool to actually do the final tightening, then it'll stop you cross-threading the actual seat base itself. So once you're happy they're in, go ahead, get your power tool and you can torque those down. It's really well made, so you can, if you want to, use an impact gun or driver. Just obviously don't overdo it. Now you can repeat the same on the other side, so just make sure you do up all 4 bolts. Again, start them off by hand if you want to. You can use just hand tools. I prefer to use my impact driver for this. It does a really nice job and make sure it's secure. Next up we've got the next 4 bolts, so this is going to be for the main seat base. So again, loosen those off if you want to. You should be able to do it by hand, but if they are a little bit tight then feel free to use a tool of some sort to loosen them off. Next we want to get the 4 spacers which are included in the packaging and put one on each one of the areas where the bolts go through. This just raises the actual seat mechanism up off the base a little. You can go ahead then and line things up, again using the same 4 bolts, and just get them started. A couple of threads turned by hand just to make sure they're all in the right place. You can, again, if you want to, just use a Allen key, or I'm using my impact driver. Do the same on all 4 parts. Next up we want to get our wheels and attach them to the base. There's 5 of these in total. You'll see actually on the spline there is like a little circlip or U-clip, and that is what holds it in place. If you get to a point where you try and put one in and it doesn't want to go, try not to force it too much. They do require a little bit of force, but sometimes you might find just actually taking it off, examining it, checking it, give it another go. If for some reason it still doesn't want to fit, as it did in my particular instance, you can just go ahead, grab another wheel, try another wheel in there, and it'll probably go in fine. It's just down to where the spring clip is a little bit out of alignment. and then it should just pop straight in as it did there. And then we're going to use the one that didn't want to go in on our final section, and yeah, bizarrely goes straight in. Make sure the wheels turn and make sure it's all nicely secured. Then we can insert the gas insert, or the upright, and then also put over the collar, which goes over the top. And if you push that right down to the very bottom, that will hold it in place nicely. Next we can put the actual seat assembly on the top. Make sure that's all nice and tight. Then remove the screws from the backrest. Again, these might be in pretty tight from the factory, so go ahead and use your impact gun or just a long Allen key should you wish to. Let's take those all out. So I've just taken the rest out by hand there. That one was still a little bit tough, so back on the impact gun just to take it back out. And then do the same on the other side of the seat back as well. Now basically refitting it, so adjust it in the side, stick on the side, make sure that the seat is lined up. So I would do this by hand, so just get the bolt started by hand, make sure it's threaded properly, then you can use your impact gun and make sure it's nice and tight, and then go ahead and do the top one as well. And then on the other side, same again, put in the top one first of all, then when it's just a few screws in, you can then adjust it. Make sure that the screw goes in by hand and starts threading. Then you can go ahead and use your power tool to fire that in. Tighten up both, make sure you're happy with it. Then you've got a little black screw to hold in the side panels, or side protectors, or covers, whatever you want to call them. I find with this, put the side protector on first and then attach the screw after. If you put the screw into the hole and then try and line the whole thing up in one go, it's actually pretty difficult. So yeah, just snap on the plastic piece first of all, and then get the screw started. You'll probably find the screw takes a good few turns. You'll feel some resistance when it gets right to the very end. When you've done that, put on the plastic covers. There's two plastic covers, one that goes on the top, and there is another little one that goes on the bottom, just covering up those protective screws. Then you can flip it around and do the same on the other side. My particular one actually had a little bit of damage in transit for some reason, but they did replace it, so I have actually put a new one on, or I'm about to put a new one on. The old one isn't too bad, to be honest with you, but they were excellent, and they sent a brand spanking new cover in the post, so that went straight on. So at this point here, we're just putting the plastic cover on, again snap it into place at the bottom, and then the rest should line up. Get your little black screw from the set, try and line it up by eye. Do a few turns just to make sure it is grabbed. You can hold it in place as well with your finger, just give it a little bit of extra pressure in there into the foam of the seat. And again, when you start feeling a bit of resistance at the end, that's all you need. When you've done that, you can put on your plastic covers. So again, a little plastic cover at the bottom, another little plastic one at the top, and that is kind of pretty much it. Then you can just remove the foam over the protective lever. And then it's probably a good idea just to make sure that everything works for the armrests. Try all the dimensions, raise it up and down, make sure that's all working. Then press in the button on the side and make sure that all the actions work there, so forward and back, left and right, etc. When you're happy, that is pretty much it.